So we are in the 21st century, knowledge-driven world, and in this world, ideas and innovation are the ingredients, and intellectual property plays a very cardinal role. In fact, intellectual property has been said to be the merchandise. Now, intellectual property plays a significant role in incentivizing individual persons, organizations, inventors in investing resources in research and development activities. And the proposition revolves around the fact that people will create more when and if they are sure that they can own through intellectual property rights what they have invented. Now, that is just one role that intellectual property plays. Another key role is that intellectual property facilitates technology transfer and licensing agreements. It also promotes the culture of collaboration and knowledge sharing amongst researchers, scientists, even entrepreneurs. Having said that, let's now get to the African context. Intellectual property has a very cardinal role to play in stimulating local innovation, indigenous innovation, because we need African driven solutions to some of the public interest related challenges that we have regarding food security, access to medicines, and the climate change crisis. So intellectual property is very, very cardinal, but we must also be mindful of the fragile intellectual property balance between the rights of the inventors and the rights of the public, and also the rights of the users. And the best approach is to have laws and policies in place that leverages intellectual property and also mitigates any barriers or threats that intellectual property may pose. Well, now, I think the first approach should be that we need to reconstruct the narrative regarding intellectual property in Africa. The existing narrative we have is that intellectual property is a mechanism that is antithetical to public interests. And, this narrative has for a long time, shaped African countries' thinking about intellectual property as a negative tool that can be used to exploit vulnerable persons, or something that has to be resisted vehemently, something that has to be protected from. But this is just one side of the coin. Intellectual property could be a problem or a solution. It depends on how it's used. It depends on how it's leveraged for development. And for Africa, the first point should be that we need to contextualize our intellectual property system, because one size does not fit all when we talk of intellectual property. So we need to map out what intellectual property system will work within the African context, and the best approach would be for us to embrace a developmental approach. How can we leverage intellectual property in facilitating technology transfer from the global north, facilitating collaborations between our researchers and researchers in other countries? How can we set up IP licensing structures and intellectual property management strategies that will facilitate the uptake and dissemination of innovative technologies that will help us address some of the public interest challenges we face. Food security, access to essential medicines, and with the climate change crisis, it's something we really have to leverage. It's something we have to work out in a positive way to benefit our people. So the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, there is the intellectual property protocol to it, and it presents a very timely opportunity, although challenging, for African countries to rebuild the intellectual property architecture on the continent, because as we have now, we have two sub-regional intellectual property organizations. We have the African Intellectual Property Organization, the OAP, and we have the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization, the HARIPO. And these two sub-regional organizations have distinct governance structures. So we hope that negotiators will leverage on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement (IP) protocol to reimagine radically what intellectual property should mean for African countries, and we hope that they will also be able to harmonize our intellectual property philosophy and systems in a way that will better the lots of the African people, and that will facilitate the development of indigenous technology, and also promotes technology transfer and collaborations across several sectors of the economy. Thank you.